Greetings, discrete math students. So one of the things that we have been considering lately is the truth table for conditional implication. Let me just put that up here to remind you. We've got, in our truth table, we've got variables P and Q in conditional implication. And then we want to do the truth table for P implies Q. So that's going to be the setup. Is our usual 4 rows, and we have true, false, true, true. So the part that people typically wonder about is this part down here in the bottom where we have the 2 trues, and those 2 trues, notice, occur when the antecedent of the conditional implication is false. Now, there are a number of reasons that we've looked at for that, and I want to give you one more because it's my favorite one, and I think it makes a really important point. This is not just some abstraction, that doesn't have any bearing on real things. It is very much tied up with, proofs and arguments and so forth. Okay, so our reason that we're going to look at today is once a false premise is assumed, you can prove anything. You really can, okay? This is, you can try this out. It really works. So the example that we will prove is the following. And notice that this is really a conditional implication in a slight disguise. Assume that 2 plus 2 equals 5. Okay, definitely that puts us in the bottom 2 rows of the truth table. Then Bertrand Russell is the Pope. And you might think this seems like kind of a bizarre example, but there is actually a neat story behind it. And that is, one time Bertrand Russell was giving a talk, and I'm not sure if this really happened or if it's kind of just a legendary thing, but he was giving a talk where he asserted this very thing, that if you assume a false premise, you can then prove anything. And someone in the audience stands up and says, "Hold on, that can't be right. I don't believe that. Are you telling me that if I assume 2 plus 2 equals 5, I can prove that you're the Pope?" Okay, and this is the extra background here that makes this extra funny is Bertrand Russell was, an ardent atheist, and one of his goals in life was to prove that God didn't exist and so forth. And so Bertrand Russell says, "Sure, I can do that." And then he proceeds just to go up on the board and do it. And so we'll look at something pretty similar to the argument that he gave. Okay, so here's our proof. So again, we do need to make this assumption that 2 plus 2 equals 5. We also get to assume, and use anything else that we know is true. That's all fair game as well. But we have this one false thing thrown into the mix. Okay, so from our assumption here, we will work from that. And I'm just going to do the addition on the left-hand side, which, of course, we know how addition works. We know 2 plus 2 is equal to 4. So it follows that 4 equals 5. Okay, now we are going to use another well-established true property of equality, which is that if you subtract the same thing from both sides of an equality, then you still have an equality. So I'm going to subtract 3 from both sides. So subtracting 3 from both sides, we're going to get 2 actually, first off, we get 1 equals 2. We also know equality is symmetric. It goes both ways. So using another legitimate property of equality, I'm going to say 2 equals 1. I think that serves my purposes a little better in this proof. And so then Bertrand Russell goes on to say, the Pope and I are 2. Okay, so I'm going to put it in third person. I'm going to say the Pope and Bertrand Russell are 2. Probably good to spell his name right. Very famous logician and mathematician. He kind of really combined the two and kind of wrote the book on doing that. So Bertrand Russell and the Pope are 2. Okay, and we're ready for the big conclusion now. 2 equals 1, right? Therefore, as you put it, the Pope and I are 1. So Bertrand Russell and the Pope are 1. Okay, there we go. We deduced our desired conclusion. Little box signifies the end of the proof. We haven't probably gotten to that yet at the time when you're watching this video, but I'll put it on there. QED would be another way to put it. It has been demonstrated. And it has. So we deduced this false conclusion from our false assumption, our false premise. And that is completely legit. Okay, we're in row 4 of the truth table here. Okay, this conditional implication, which would be if 2 plus 2 equals 5, then Bertrand Russell is a Pope, that is a true conditional implication, and in fact, we have just proved it. Okay, famous example, but certainly not isolated. You can do this with anything. And it's actually kind of fun. So, let's see, there it is. So I encourage you to go ahead and try it. Here's an example you can try it on. And I've come up with a number of examples like this, and you can always do it. You know, sometimes it may be a little more convoluted than others. But if 1 equals 0, then, that's supposed to say then, 1 million equals 1. And this also is a true conditional implication, and I bet if you put a little thought into it, you can actually prove that that is true. In doing that, you get to assume 1 equals 0, and then you can go from there. Before too long, you can reach 1 million equals 1. Now, people find this a little strange, for sure, because, of course, 1 does not equal 0. The antecedent is false. And 1 million does not equal 1. The consequent is also false. Nonetheless, the conditional implication overall, false implies false, it is true and can be proved. So this is, I think, really important when you are looking at a conditional implication too, because these are common errors. This conditional implication is not saying that 1 million equals 1. All right, knowing that a conditional implication is true does not guarantee that its consequent is true. It's also not saying that 1 equals 0, because knowing a conditional implication is true doesn't tell you its antecedent is true. What this is saying is that 1 million equals 1 follows from 1 equals 0, and that is true and can be proved. Okay, so this is all in good fun on some level, but on another level, there is a serious warning in this. And that's that when you are doing proofs, which you will be doing soon, it is not okay to have anything false, any false step in your proof. Because if you do, then whatever conclusion you reach in that proof, big deal, okay? You have a false premise somewhere in that proof. Yeah, you could have deduced something that is true, but you could also have deduced something that is false, because you could deduce anything as soon as you have a false step in the proof. So the whole proof becomes, at least from a logic standpoint, worthless. Okay, you might as well be proving that if 1 equals 0, then 1 million equals 1. It's got no content because it's a false premise in there. Okay, my battery's running out. I better end here. Hope you enjoyed this interesting excursion into a weird world.